It's the year 1914, and we find ourselves on a small, isolated island in the far reaches of the South Atlantic. No bustling city, no crowd, just a lighthouse standing tall over a mystery buried beneath the ocean's depths. A ship cuts through the waves, carrying David, a weather officer sent by the government to spend a year on this desolate island, observing the strange weather patterns and uncovering whatever secrets might lie hidden here. Captain Axel, in command of the ship, has brought David and all the supplies he'll need to survive this long, lonely year. As they finally reach the island, they come upon the small house and lighthouse that will be David's home. But something is clearly wrong. The house is in disarray, furniture turned over and no sign of the previous officer, Robert. Hoping to find him, they hurry to the lighthouse, only to be met with an unsettling sight. The entire entrance has been barricaded with sharp, wooden stakes, as if someone, or something, wanted to make sure that no one ever went inside. Captain Axel and David knocked on the lighthouse door again and again, but there was no answer. Finally, they forced the door open and stepped inside. At the very top of the lighthouse, they found a man named Gruner lying down. When they asked him about the missing weather officer, Gruner responded carelessly, saying that he was dead. He had fallen ill with some terrible disease. When the captain pressed him for more details, Gruner's answer grew even stranger, suggesting that maybe someone had killed him. David and Captain Axel were both shocked by Gruner's words and began to wonder if he was in his right mind. But without any sign of the old officer's body, they couldn't do much. The captain turned to David and said, "If you want, you can still come back with us." But David was determined. He knew that if he could give the government accurate weather reports from this island, he would earn a lot of money, and he desperately needed it. So he decided to stay. Captain Axel handed him a gun for protection. Perhaps this place wasn't as safe as it looked. After the ship left, David worked to make the small house more livable. While cleaning up, he found an old diary that belonged to the previous officer. It revealed that the man had come to this island in 1913. The diary had plenty of notes about the island, but many things were left unfinished or unclear. There were also rough sketches of strange animals that David didn't understand. Maybe the old officer had been lonely and was just passing the time. On one page, David found a photo of the officer's wife. Tired from reading the diary, David drifted off to sleep. The next morning, he started his weather work. But as he walked down to the sea, something strange stopped him. Among the rocks, he noticed stones carefully arranged in a pattern, with seashells placed in between them in an odd way. David wondered if Gruner had done this, but he couldn't be sure. Thinking this, David got back to work, focusing on the weather data he had come here to collect. During his observations, he looked through his binoculars and thought he saw another person with Gruner at the lighthouse, but then he wondered if it was just his imagination. That night, David was busy recording his data when he heard a knock at the door. He thought it might be Gruner and called out to him, but there was no response. As he moved closer with a lamp in his hand, strange sounds began to echo in his ears. Suddenly, he saw a hand creeping under the door, an inhuman hand, gnarled and monstrous. Fear surged through David, and he ran to the basement to hide. He heard the door open and felt the presence of the creature searching for him in the shadows. Then, through a small crack in the basement wall, he saw its eyes, glowing and terrifying. David grabbed a knife and, as the creature's eyes appeared at the crack, he stabbed with all his strength. The creature let out a chilling scream and fled, but David knew it could return at any time. He spent the rest of the night in the basement, the door tied shut with rope, his heart pounding in the dark. When morning came, David stepped outside and saw strange footprints in the sand, footprints that were clearly not human. They led straight to the sea and disappeared. Now David understood why Gruner had surrounded the lighthouse with those sharp stakes, for this creature. David knew his house wasn't safe anymore. He ran to the lighthouse and shouted for Gruner to open the door, begging to be let in. But Gruner refused, telling him he should have left with the captain when he had the chance. David returned to his house, disappointed but determined to protect himself. He boarded up every window with wooden planks, built a fence of sharp stakes all around the house, and piled old papers and books outside the door as a warning. David sprinkled oil on the papers and old books outside the gate, hoping the smell of fire would scare the creature away if it returned. But there was something David didn't know yet, something he was about to discover that very night. While searching the house, he found an old box hidden away. Inside were a gun and plenty of bullets. This gave David a bit of courage, though the fear inside him was still strong. As the sun set and darkness spread across the island, David sat quietly in a corner of the house, clutching the gun tightly. His breathing was quick and shallow. Suddenly, strange sounds filled the air. When David moved to the window, it felt as if the ground slipped away beneath him. Not just one, but many creatures were rising from the water, moving quickly toward his house. Before long, they began attacking the gate. David fired his gun, hitting some of them, but the rest became more furious and desperate to get inside. Seeing the growing number of creatures, David acted fast. He lit the pile of old papers and books on fire. The flames scared the creatures and they retreated back to the sea. But now the fire had spread to his wooden house. David wrapped himself in a thick sheet, broke through the burning gate, and ran to hide behind a large stone near the lighthouse. His right hand was badly burned. Just then, rain started falling, slowly putting out the flames. By morning, the house was nearly destroyed, reduced to ashes. With nowhere else to go, David knew he had to take shelter inside the lighthouse. He grabbed his rifle and hid among the rocks near it. When Gruner came outside to fill a water container, David followed him, intending to force his way into the lighthouse at gunpoint. But just then, a creature, standing close to Gruner, attacked David. Gruner quickly stopped him and said, "This is my pet." David didn't shoot but made a condition: if he wanted to survive, he needed to stay in the lighthouse. He had enough gunpowder and food to last for a year, enough for both of them. Gruner was silent for a long moment before slowly agreeing. That evening, they brought the remaining food inside the lighthouse together. The next morning, David woke to find the creature quietly licking his burned hand. To his shock, the injury was healing much faster than he expected. What was happening around him was strange and hard to believe. At the top of the lighthouse, David watched as Gruner carefully counted the bullets from the old gun, with the strange creature quietly helping him. This showed David that the creature wasn't violent, which surprised him. Now, David wanted to learn more about this and hoped to reveal the truth about this mysterious creature to the world, something truly miraculous. The strange female creature had come from the deep, dark sea. If the world found out about her, David and Gruner would become famous. But Gruner didn't want any of that. He didn't want to leave the island. Gruner believed no one could live freely in society. Everyone is either a slave or a servant to someone else. That's why this island was perfect for him. Here, he considered himself a king, master of his own rules. He had even destroyed parts of the island to prove his power. But how did this strange female creature become Gruner's pet? Years ago, Gruner had saved her when she got caught in his fishing net. She was small and helpless then, and from that day, she stayed with him, obeying his every command. Gruner was an angry man and never treated her kindly. Their relationship was complicated and harsh. He was cruel to her, and once when she fought back, Gruner punished her so severely that she started seeing herself as his servant. Maybe that's why every night, creatures like her rise from the sea, trying to take him back. But they cannot attack during the day. David, however, didn't want to live on the island any longer. He wanted to signal any passing ship and escape. Gruner told him no ships ever came here, but David refused to believe it. He felt trapped and suffocated. As night fell, Gruner warned David to prepare for an attack. The creatures came out of the sea in large numbers, moving toward the lighthouse. Gruner fought fiercely, firing his gun constantly. But David was terrified and retreated inside. Despite Gruner's pleas, David just sat in a corner until he fainted. Gruner kept fighting alone through the night. The next morning, Gruner woke David angrily and laid down the rules. If David wanted to stay in the lighthouse, he had to obey everything: fetch water, do all the chores, and stand guard with him at night, whether he liked it or not. It was a hard life, but necessary for survival. David agreed to the work, but one thing he could never accept was the way Gruner cruelly treated the female creature every day. Still, living alone on a deserted island for years can break anyone's mind, and David suspected Gruner's mind wasn't well. That night, as they prepared for guard duty, the creatures emerged again from the sea. But this time, David wasn't scared. He fired his gun while Gruner stayed inside, closing the gate and quietly watching. Gruner wanted David to learn how to fight, warning him that if he didn't, he would die out there. David screamed for help during one fierce night of fighting, but Gruner didn't come to his aid. The battle went on through the dark hours until morning. When the sun rose, Gruner found David outside the lighthouse gate, soaked in blood but no longer afraid. He had finally learned how to fight these creatures. Days turned into weeks, and this island slowly became David's prison. By day, he managed Gruner's lighthouse and chores. By night, he defended himself from the relentless attacks. Still, he always dreamed of escaping, wondering when he'd finally be free. Over time, something unexpected happened. David developed a strange friendship with the female creature. He named her Anarius and began to feel sympathy for her, understanding how lonely and trapped she must be, just like him, living apart from her own kind. Interestingly, the attacks from the creatures started to lessen. David thought maybe they migrated like birds do in winter, or maybe they had learned that fighting was useless. But Gruner insisted this was not true. The creatures were breeding, and their numbers were growing. One evening, after dinner, David and Gruner played chess to pass the time. But Gruner made a critical mistake. They got so absorbed in the game that they forgot to light the lighthouse. In the darkness, the creatures launched a massive attack. Their numbers had grown so large that even two men couldn't fight them off. Bullets ran low. During the chaos, Gruner's leg was badly wounded. The creatures pushed closer, trying to break into the lighthouse. With no way out, the two men surrendered to fate until dawn. As the sun rose, the creatures retreated back to the sea. Ananias carefully tended to Gruner's wound, but David realized the battle was lost. They had no bullets left, and food was running dangerously low. Then, one day, while wandering outside, David spotted a ship far out at sea. Hope surged through him as he grabbed the flare gun to signal for help, but Gruner stopped him. Gruner didn't want David to leave. At that moment, Ananias attacked Gruner, trying to protect David. Gruner was desperate to keep control. This island was his kingdom, where he was the king and Ananias his obedient servant. After years of isolation, Gruner finally had someone to talk to, and he wasn't willing to lose that life or let David go. The ship slowly disappeared beyond the horizon, leaving David with nothing but despair. Days passed with Gruner continuing his cruel treatment.